Good morning, friends. My name is Gurudat Prasad, associated with an organization called Coastal Area Disaster Mitigation Efforts. In fact, we have been working on disaster risk reduction, particularly with children, for the past 2 decades. Before going to make a presentation of our intervention, particularly in Andhra Pradesh, I would like to present a case study which was happened in Andhra Pradesh, Divsima, in 1977. You might have heard that the biggest cyclone in Andhra Pradesh, which was happened in 1977, that cyclone name is Divsima cyclone. Divsima cyclone it was a big disaster, particularly in Andhra Pradesh history of natural disasters. At that point, in fact, I was doing my graduation at government college and participated as a relief worker to extend my services to the victims of cyclone. In fact, several pathetic incidents were taken place, particularly in this miserable disaster. And one of the incidents inspired me to continue my work on disaster risk reduction, particularly with the children. The dangerous tidal wave came up at 100 feet height, inundating hundreds of villages, killing thousands of people, and in fact, 80% of the dead were children. People died without knowing what was happening there as they were in deep sleep. By the time this tidal wave came up with 250 kilometers of wind velocity, and the cyclone gale made them very much panic. At Malagailanka village, one of the villages in Krishna district, all the women were died, children were died, and 80% of the male people were survived as they were able to swim. In the same situation arised at Ramagandam, another village, the male people were in a dilemma. Whether to rescue their children or not, as there are obstacles to swim. So finally, they had decided to leave their children into the water abruptly, at least to save their lives. They stood in the water around and kissed their children and left their children into the water and started swimming. Particularly one incident, Mr. Veeraya, who was then 42 years old, was having only one son, 6 years old. He also left his son into the water and started swimming. But out of his fatherly affection, while swimming, he turned his head to have a lost sight on his son. His son was droning in the water, tapping the water with hands and legs. Then he saw a thatched roof floating on the water nearby to his son. He went back and catched his son's hair, put him on the thatched roof along with him. Both father and son floated on the water with the help of thatched roof for 6 hours in the cyclone water, and they found a big tree, and both of them climbed the tree and stayed there for 14 hours. And after receding the water, they came down and went to a nearest cyclone shelter. So this kind of pathetic incidents were taking place, particularly in Andhra Pradesh. And in 1993, I went to that same village and I had an interaction with them about the vulnerability of the cyclones and other things. And actually, his name initially was Sabbarao, and after this incident, the name has been changed as Mrutyunjayaro, Conqueror of Death. So this kind of actually how the children are very much vulnerable to disasters. Let us learn lessons from the past disasters and put our efforts to build a safer society for the children. Yes, this is background. I will quickly go through the slides, please. These are the interventions we are making at a community level to capacitate the children to combat the disaster situations. There are 72 slides, but I have only 15 minutes time, so that's why I will go very quickly. Yeah, this is a disaster. This is overview of disasters in Andhra Pradesh, right from 1977 to 2012, how many disasters occurred and other things. And this is the disaster cycle. Generally, we follow in capacitating the children, particularly we use this disaster cycle. These are the objectives of our organization. This is the area we are covering in Andhra Pradesh, India. This is the impacts of climate change on children and young people. This is the impacts of climate change on children and young people. Continuation. Children as drivers of change. And in particular, why we are talking about this climate change, particularly in peacetime, we are also imparting some knowledge and skills to the children to reduce the climate, global warming. That is why we are just integrating this disaster risk reduction with climate change. This is the training task force groups, child task force groups, warning and evacuation, emergency medical care, emergency rescue, relief camp management, contingency plan development, disaster drill. These are the modules of our training program to the children. This is the peacetime interventions, mangrove forest regeneration, promotion of natural farming, awareness on POPs, persistent organic pollutants, and hazards of chemicals, green belt initiation along the coast, solid waste management, vulnerability analysis, hazard-based preparedness, contingency plan development, emergency resource mobilization, climate smart interventions in peacetime. This is the module and module 1. This is the planning, children explaining disaster cycle and contingency plans. This is the task force is responsible to warn the villages about the disaster and other things. This is the child task force member warns about disaster information in the village and red flag hosting as a signal of danger. We are actually, our training is completely practical and locally, we conduct the training programs with locally available material, not depending on other material or other equipment or any machines or something. So that is why this is a local based training program. This is the warnings, generally precautionary measures to be taken up, particularly in disaster time. This is the low-lying areas are inundated easily, right? The women and children are equally vulnerable. The pre-planned timely evacuation has to be coordinated by task force. This is early evacuation. The second module is emergency rescue methods and knots and its uses. How the knots are very much useful, particularly in disasters. We generally impart that kind of using of knots to the children so that they can be able to use that knots in particular situation. 5 minutes, okay. Right, this is rescue techniques. Breastline throw, this is a breastline. This knot is very much useful in rescuing a person who is drowning in the water. This is a crossing. The locally available material, we can construct the floating aids, particularly to float on the water, especially useful for women. Yeah, the women is floating on water. This floating aids, dragging. This is also another dragging. Emergency medical care. This is actually this is the person who is having wound on his stomach can be lifted like this. This is double human crutch, head bandage, and emergency rescue. These are the rescue techniques. This is Holliger Nelson method for the artificial respiration. This is mouth to mouth, this one. This is rescuing a person who has been trapped in a multi-storied building by a rope and with knots. This is relief camp management. This is contingency plan. After having gone through all the modules of training program, these children are expected to develop a contingency plan of their respective villages where vulnerable people are there. Each person and each vulnerable person or family is marked with different marks. So particularly in disaster time, these children or task force members will be able to identify the vulnerable people in the village and rescue them in right time. So that is why this plan is very important. The disaster, after having gone through all the trainings, and these children and task force members are expected to conduct a disaster drill in their villages. If cyclone or flood happens, what they will do. This kind of rehearsal is being done in our villages to actually to make them perfect to do and their responsibilities in pre, during, and post-disaster situations. This is disaster drill. Yes, this is also disaster drill. The integration, how can we integrate that activities, disaster risk reduction with ongoing developmental activities? This is very important. How can we integrate this activity with governmental programs or other programs? This climate change interventions, this mangrove regeneration as a disaster preparedness activity. These future interventions of CADME, these are the interventions to be made in the coming years. This is the Sasaka Award which I got in 2003 and 4 for my outstanding efforts in disaster risk reduction. Thanks for the Sorry, I don't have much time. That is why I could not able to explain very elaborately. But each slide will take at least 1 or 2 minutes to explain. But because of the time and other things, I could not able to explain each slide very elaborately. Sorry for that one. Thank you very much for your kind patience.
Where can we get your slides available, downloadable or?
Tell me.
Where can we get your presentation online?
Yeah, I will send it that this presentation. I have this email address and other things. Those who are interested to have this kind of presentation, kindly contact me. I will put the brochures of my organization along with email identity and phone numbers. Kindly contact us. And we have also brought out a child-friendly manual. How can the training program which we are being organized at Andhra Pradesh is in the training modules are incorporated in the training manual. You can also use this manual as a guide to train up your children and the task force members. I have only one copy at the moment. I will hand over it to her. These are the brochures of my organization. If anyone is interested, kindly take the brochures. I will put it here. Thanks a lot for your kind patience, and in fact, it was a great opportunity for me to give me to make my presentation very elaborately with you. Sorry for the time slot. In fact, because of time factor, I could not able to explain very elaborately about each slide. I'm sorry again. Thank you very much.